waited. You didn't get up right away, Lori, so I waited. I didn't know if you wanted the end or not.
Give somebody else a turn.
At the agenda.
This one's quick. It's not even a full 3 minutes. Imagine that.
But can you still just do your name and address? Just
Oh, yeah. Lori Boyko, 15 Oakhurst Road, Simsbury, Connecticut. We have been blessed here in this country with some of the greatest privileges and freedoms known to mankind. Rather than a top-down government that rules the people, ours is the only one that from its inception was created by the people, for the people, based on our God-given rights. We elect people to serve in the government to represent us, not to rule over us. With great freedom comes tremendous responsibility. As citizens of a self-governed nation, it is imperative that we each fulfill our personal obligations. One of our most essential obligations is to draw on our own personal bodies of knowledge, to revisit the scientific method and question conclusions, and to heed the warnings of history. As Christine Anderson, a German member of the European Parliament, stated, "At no point in history have the people forcing others into compliance been the good guys. The welfare of humanity has always been the alibi of tyrants." The WHO has even conceded that the virus is no more dangerous than the common flu. There are unintended consequences, as we've talked about, to required masking, and we are all allowing dogma to override common sense. Thank you.
thanks, Lori. Anybody else? All right. Not seeing anyone. We'll move into committee reports and Board of Ed communications. Olivia, I understand we're welcoming you to your last meeting with us, and thank you very much for serving with us. We appreciate it.
Of course.
So, all you.
All right, so starting off at Tooten Hills, the Tooten Hills community participated in CCMC's PJ Day for the kids on Friday, December 10th. They raised over $1,400 to support the brave children fighting cancer and other illnesses, and Miss Belmonte says she's incredibly thankful to everyone who donated. At Latimer Lane, they also joined the schools from across the state to participate in PJ Day for the kids at CCMC, and each year Latimer is at or near the top in fundraising for this organization. Terriffill had a great attendance for their parent-teacher conferences last week, and this week they will start their enrichment program of Invention Convention. Squadron Line is also helping out at a Suffolk Cruise fundraiser tomorrow and Thursday from 3 to 7 p.m., and they also participated in PJ Day last week as well. At Central, 5th and 6th grade students are invited to join an after-school world language exploration program for French and Chinese. This will be instructed by SHS Chinese and French National Honor Society members. Move into the middle school. Henry James participated in an hour of code on Monday and enjoyed having SHS students work with them to learn more about coding. It was also just announced that the HJMS musical is Frozen Junior this year. And finally, at Simsbury High School, we had a great end to our fall athletic season with 2 state championship games and also a new math honor societies being established to recognize kids excelling in math.
That's great. Do you happen to know when the performance at Henry James will be? Did they give you dates?
I do not know yet.
I know it's near springtime. So.
They're just having tryouts tonight, isn't it?
Oh,
Well, all right.
that's great.
All right, Lyd.
Something to look forward to in the spring. Yeah, so I have a few things to just talk about or discuss. We had last week, and I was in D.C. for NSBA, National School Board Association, and this was our first meeting for the board. Also, we have new board members in 2 years because we've been totally remote. So it was great to be in person there, and we also have a new CEO. So we just hired him in November, so he is there, so we got to meet him, and we also had a board training, and we talked a lot about the future of NSBA, where we are in terms of services, membership services, revenue, and participating states. So we are gearing up now for DC in January. We'll be there hopefully on the Hill with our legislative agenda, but we'll also have a whole day of an equity conference, and we will also have 2 days of Advocacy Institute. So our attendees, our numbers are up. People want to be there. They want to be part of the meetings and the symposiums, and obviously everything will be safe, in terms of COVID. But so that's what we're looking forward to. And so it was a good meeting. It was great to be back in DC and able to meet in person and discuss some critical things that are going on. We also had the Delegate Assembly back in November, and before we had the convention. And the Delegate Assembly, that's where we proposed the legislative priorities. We had 18 this year. So we met for a half an afternoon. We had a lot of discussion back and forth on a number of the resolutions. Many were brought forward by other school districts in terms of what they deem important. But we did pass. We passed about 15 of the proposed resolutions for 2022. And this will be our official position for CABE, as we hopefully will be on the Hill in March. That's to be determined. But when we talk to our legislators who are still not in session there, and it's a working document, but this will be specific language for the legislative package. And I think many of these resolutions will also resonate with this Board of Education. So, and we also had the Great CABE CAPS Convention. We had it one day this year. Unfortunately, we didn't have 2 days, but one day. We're going back to the 2 days next year. And we had about 250 attendees. We had to cap it just because of that. But the whole topic in the agenda was the future, civility, diversity, and student voice. And we had great speakers. Secretary Gardona was able to zoom in and spoke with us. It was the first time that many attendees were able to hear him in his new position as Secretary of Education. We also met with the State Board of Education and the Commissioner, and so that was always very interesting to hear what's coming down the pike within the state of Connecticut. And then yours truly here was able to participate in the Nutmeg's annual meeting of the Nutmeg Board. This is where Tom Mooney basically orchestrates a play, a script, where we, as board members, and there are a number of us, and we all have different positions on here, and we literally talk about things that board members should not do, things that should not happen at board meetings, whether legal, advocacy, or what have you. So it really is very, very interesting. And we had the Windsor superintendent, who was the superintendent on the Nutmeg board, so that was really great. Last week we also had the new board member and leadership conference, and that was very well attended also. And I was able to participate in a session about things I wish I had known when I became a board member. So it was great. We had about 200 attendees. Many new board members that just recently got elected, so it was great to be able to have them attend and learn all day, the intensive all day. Tom Mooney was there about legal, about board policy, about a number of things. So that was it. Oh, and before I forget, we received for CABE, and Matt and I were there, and Sue were there, so this year we received, again, if you can see it, the CABE Board Recognition Award for high standards, dedication, and teamwork. So it was a great award. We have another little nameplate here to put on our plaques.
When our plaques come back.
When they come back. But I have to congratulate the whole board for participating in this, because this is full board participation, and we should be very proud about receiving this again every year. So it doesn't come easy, and kudos for all the good work that this Board of Education does for the community and for the students and staff in Simsbury.
That's a wonderful
that's it.
recognition. So our thanks to Kate for that. Mr. Watson.
I have no committee reports tonight.
Very good. Tara.
Hi, I would like to, I can recount our curriculum meeting. We had a curriculum meeting on December 2nd. Greg Stillman came, he's the Director of School Counseling, and he spoke to us about early college experience. And we have an additional opportunity for our students to have dual enrollment with UConn on certain courses. At this point in time, we have 4 courses available for this, 3 courses and 1 almost available. AP English Lit, Latin American Studies, which actually is the first year, next year will be the first year teaching that course. And it's one semester, and we have about 15 students who have already signed up for it for a first-year class, which is,
Wow,
It's actually running right now.
it's running right now. So we have 15 kids in that class, which is really exciting.
that's great.
Individual family development, advanced drawing, and hopefully music theory. But those are dual enrollment with UConn, and the students would get course credit. Obviously the parameters, we need to have, it must align with, our course must align with the UConn parameters, and our teacher must meet certain credentials in their field of study. As AP, this isn't meant to give any more stress to students, it's meant to be an alternative and an additional opportunity. Some kids, the AP English is kind of interesting in that you've got AP and this UConn, so kids can choose to do both, they can choose to do one. It doesn't really affect the course, they take the course, and then at the end, they
It's good
credit.
either way.
You have to pay for the AP test, you'll pay for this as well. AP's, I think, about $100 a test now, and this would be a $50 expense, but, so it's up to the students of what works best for them and their families. But I think it's really cool to have another alternative and some of these courses don't have any AP opportunities.
Yep.
So that also gives a nice chance for some of these kids to get the experience of a college course before they head off to college.
Are they transferable credits?
Well, we're going to have to watch the data on that, but they are transferable credits for UConn, for
Okay.
sure. And other schools,
But if
we're
they go
going to see.
somewhere else, okay.
We're going to have to see about that.
So Susan, UConn advertises that it's about a 90% transferability rate
Yeah.
for credit, but that's something that Mr. Stillman really wants to keep an eye on because we have had a market increase this past year of students who want to participate in the ECE opportunity.
Okay.
So he's going to do some longitudinal follow-up with these students to see did they attend UConn, and if they didn't, were their credits transferable, so we can see how that plays out here in our community.
Great, thank you.
We also had Emily Drago came from the English curriculum, and we've added a couple books to the high school curriculum there. We added The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon, and it's going to be a companion book to Romeo and Juliet to just kind of take the modern and the historic aspects and work through that. And we also added another anthology that can pair with multiple books that we already have in existence that will pair with some of the curriculum we already have. And that's called Black Enough it's edited by E.B. Zuboy. So that's what happened.
Great. You guys are busy.
We were a little busy. There's a lot going on. It's all good.
Yeah, sounds good.
I also want to take 1 second to thank the Henry James Holiday Cabaret who sang at Simsbury Celebrates, and they did a great job, and they stood in the cold and entertained people, and it was wonderful to have them at Simsbury Celebrates.
And also the a cappella group that sang at the swearing-in ceremony for
They were
all
amazing.
the municipal employees. People could not stop talking about them, so kudos to them. Ms. Batch.
Oh, and one last, I want to thank all the art people, because we're back in this room, and we have new art, and it's very, very exceptional.
Exciting. Agreed.
I don't know if SCTV can show it, but it would be nice to do a screen through. All right, thank you, I'm done.
Okay. Jen.
We had a policy meeting, but I'm not going to steal Neil's thunder, so he can have at it. That was it.
We appreciate your work.
We don't need to do double.
Jeff? So,
So just to expand a little bit on what Olivia shared relative to the world language enrichment opportunity at Central School, it's actually open to all elementary students in 5th and 6th grade. And that is done by the National Honor Society students, the French National Honor Society, and Chinese Honor Society. And they want to get our elementary school students excited about their target language. So that's fantastic. She also mentioned that Henry James participated today in the Hour of Code, and that's actually happening also at the elementary schools. So this week is Computer Science Education Week, and our students from the Simsbury High School Computer Science Honor Society volunteered their time, come into the elementary schools, and work with our elementary school students on a variety of different kinds of coding activities through the Hour of Code. So I may have two very personal examples, and I was asking them about them today because they were showing me their jumping unicorns and spiraling donuts. that they coded, but just so many examples of our high school students working with our elementary school students and just getting them excited about content, coding, world language, and it's really exciting to watch and experience.
It's great to see that.
Well, I was going to have no report until Jen.
We know that that's not true, Neil. We know that's not true.
So the policy committee did meet. We actually were cleaning up some work that we did by Zoom last year, where the board will recall we're kind of trying to move full series at a time. So this last year we had reviewed the 1100 series, which is the community series, compared it against the table of contents of what CABE has in its community series, and we were adding, talking about adding a few policies that CABE had that we don't to supplement our policy. So we're almost there. A little bit more homework to do on a policy related to how we use like robocalls and some of the texting apps. We actually did not have policy on that. So tried to borrow a little language from CABE. We got to our meeting, it didn't quite fit. So I got a little more homework to bring back to the policy committee, and then later in the spring we'll approve the 1100 series.
Jason?
Nothing to report.
Amy?
All set, thank you.
All right then. Mr. Curtis?
Yeah, I just wanted to retouch base on the 3-board meeting.
Yep.
So we had that a couple weeks ago with the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and our board. I thought it's kind of our annual kickoff to the budget process and an opportunity to talk about priorities, talk about fixed costs a little bit, and how we can support each other through the process. So I thought it was a really productive meeting. I know it's normally a meeting where we the Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed, historically have gotten, guidance or a hard cap to try to come in at. We didn't get that. A little bit of a different approach to come forward in the budget process, have it be a little more, I think, organic, talk through what the needs are. I think there's a recognition that this year the school board and the school system's in a different place in terms of identifying some resources and supports that we'll need. We kicked off internally today with our building principal meetings. So I had an opportunity, actually Mike came forward and presented his building-based budget tonight. So, that system or that time of the year is underway, and when we get back from holiday break, that's when our series of presentations in public and our workshop will take place. But I thought it was a great meeting with multiple boards. I was really encouraged with how the Board of Selectmen talked about, partnering in this and having some future discussions about the ARPA funding, the COVID relief funds, and are there different ways that we can potentially support each other moving through. So I thought a good meeting by everybody. Our fixed costs are certainly a little bit higher than they have been in prior years, so we have work to do. But I think it'll be a good, productive process, and we will continue to keep the boards and the public informed.
Terrific, thank you. And I agree that tri-board meeting, I didn't realize that how rare it is that the town and the Board of Ed would work so closely and so well together. So I appreciate that partnership that we have going, and Amy guiding us through a lot of it,
Yes.
and the shared services. So
I do want to publicly thank Rob Pomeroy for his leadership
Absolutely.
and the great work he's done for the Board of Finance over the past several years. So as Rob steps away.
Yep, as chair of the Board of Finance, he has led us through some tricky budgets, and we
Absolutely.
appreciate that. All right, so with that, we are on to recommended actions. Approval of the minutes of the November 3rd special meeting. Can I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes of the November 9 meeting.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, personnel.
Yeah, just one resignation tonight. Unexpected, it's a teacher we hired this summer, is not with us very long. Had another opportunity. Matt Sackerman was a special education teacher at Simsbury High School. We actually we're moving some of the students to different caseloads, and some part-time teachers. The part-time teacher's going to pick up a little more, so we won't be replacing this position at this point, but need you to accept Mr. Sackerman's resignation.
Can I get a motion for that, please?
Move that the Board of Education accept the resignation of Matthew Sackelman effective November 24th, 2021.
In a second? Any discussion? All those in favor? And that's, they can manage the caseload with that loss?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And then with the plan going
Okay.
forward.
Okay. You'll keep us posted if something changes. All right. Approval of gift from Ensign Bickford.
Very exciting. We have our friends from Ensign Bickford here tonight. I'm going to pass it to Sue, I think, the intro. We got Maggie here as well, right? We got a whole crew. This is great.
I said, I walked in, I saw the crowd in the room, I was like, oh my goodness.
So exciting, right? No, as the board knows, Ensign Bickford has been so generous in their donations to our opportunities that we provide students K-12 to get them really excited about the STEM field. And we had the opportunity to meet with Edris earlier this year and to show you firsthand kind of how we were utilizing the generous gifts from Ensign Bickford. So I'm actually going to hand it over to Maggie to give a little bit more detail and to introduce our guests.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I'm now the Director of Instructional Technology. So I walked into this incredible relationship and partnership with Ensign Bickford and just wanted to first of all say thank you. A little bit of the background with the STEM initiative really started at the high school where there was everything from laser cutters and things purchased through the donation. Last year we had the opportunity to take that STEM initiative and really pull it down to the middle school while continuing a little bit more at the high school. Things like 3D printers and the laptop for the new CNC machine, all purchased so that our kids can continue that STEM experience. And last year we actually also used the money to continue that downward into the elementary schools. So with the generous donation we were able to purchase 10 larger memory iPads, 2 for each of the elementary schools. We have the Dash robots. We also have the Lego We Do kits. Those are the real primer kits that take us all the way up to the robotics team. So we get our little guys really starting with Lego and coding Lego with the idea that they go to the first all the way up to the high school, which is back in action. So very excited for that partnership and just wanted to share like our plan for this year. Henry James, we're looking to bring some Arduino kits and also some virtual reality. So we were able to purchase the VR headset and software with the funds at the high school. That's now coming down to the middle school, and then we're even using it for some primer VR stuff at the elementary level. So really seeing that K-12 trajectory and noticing that, the continued work of the competencies of our vision of the graduate. So wanted to publicly thank you. I'm excited for the work as we continue moving forward, and just seeing the engagement and excitement of our students is truly wonderful, and want to continue to encourage you to come in and partner with us. So
thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Let's say one thing.
Absolutely.
And then, we do have a big check over there that we'd like to take a picture with, if that's possible. But my name is Edris, and my colleagues and I are here on behalf of Ensign Bickford Aerospace and Defense, as you heard, to present this grant in support of STEM education, which is really the fuel that drives our business. And so, all of us here, there's 4 of us here that live in town and have children either in school, have been in school here, or will be in school here. I'll let you guys figure out which one's which. So with that, we thank you guys for the opportunity to be part of this and have this partnership and support STEM. So thank you.
I'm going to grab the check.
We'll get the check.
Great, so there is a motion,
Yes, so we're
and
gonna
you're
do-
going to find that the motion doesn't match the big check. And I'm going to explain why a bit. So we are in our 3rd year of a $30,000 overall donation from Ensign Bickford. So $10,000 of that $12,500 is the last installment of that $10,000.
Okay.
They added last year an additional $2,500, which we didn't officially approve from the board. And they're doing that again for an additional $2,500.
So that's the motion.
So the motion is for 5, which is the $2,500 and the $2,500. But the check is the last 10,000 installment in the extra 2,500 from this year. So I know that that's going to sound confusing and look confusing, so I just wanted to give a little bit of that background.
We appreciate the math lesson.
Not as much as we appreciate the money.
Exactly, exactly. Should we do the motion first? Let's do the
Yes.
motion. So can I get a
Go.
motion, please?
Sure, I'll do it. Move that the proposed gift of $5,000 to the Simsbury High School from Ensign Bickford Aerospace and Defense Company be accepted.
And a second, please.
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you, thank you,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
1,000 times wrong.
Amazing.
5,000 times
Appreciate
wrong.
it, Jen.
That's right.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Now we can go get a picture.
I'll get a photo too.
Actually had lunch with Ensign Bickford today. One of my best customers.
Nice. Good to know.
Where do you want? You want to come over there, Max?
Convenient.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Director of Instructional. There we go.
It's easy having
Without question. That's awesome.
Smile.
Everybody say stay! All right, thank you so much.
Thank you very
No.
very much.
No, yeah.
Appreciate it.
It'll be fine, she can manage it. It'll be fine.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming and for your generosity.
Welcome.
Thank you for coming out.
Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming
Thank you so
tonight.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank
you so much.
See you in the parking lot.
Okay. Now on to less exciting things. Our meeting schedule for 2022. All right, so as you, Exhibit 5, it lays out our dates through the end of next December. And as we know, if we need to change them or cancel them, we will do that on a as-needed basis. But I need a motion to approve the new meeting schedule, please.
I move that the Board of Education set their 2022 meeting schedule as outlined in the December 14th, 2021 Board Exhibit.
Any discussion? Please note the 23rd is on a Wednesday. Is that due to the holiday?
2-day break.
Yep, the winter break, yep, okay,
President's Weekend.
yep, all right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, that's set. Policy approval.
These were policies that our policy committee worked on at the start of this school year in response to recent legislation, so that they have been through the committee, a first and second reading. They are all in response to recent legislation, are a little bit of a catch-up for us, but they are now all the way through the sometimes lengthy policy process, and they're ready for final approval tonight.
All right, then. Can I get a motion to adopt the policies that we have all read and reread?
I'll move to adopt the revised Board of Education policies as noted, effective December 14th, 2021.
In a second, please. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. All right, so now on to the tricky part of the meeting. We screwed it up last time. So we're gonna root for the best here. It is the election of the Board of Education officers. So we do this after every municipal election, just as a reminder for those watching. And at this meeting, we will elect officers for chairperson, vice chair, and secretary. And then it's effective immediately for another 2-year term. So with that, I want to open the floor for nominations for secretary of the Simsbury Board of Education.
I move that Jennifer Batchelor be nominated for Secretary of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Are there any further nominations? Any further nominations? All right, with hearing none, I would close nominations for Secretary of the Board of Education.
Liz?
We are now on to the second motion. So I will move that Jennifer Batchelor be elected as Secretary of the Simsbury Board of Education.
I'll second.
And is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously elected, Mrs. Batchelor. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I would like to open the floor for nominations for Vice Chair of the Simsbury Board of Education.
Okay, I will move that Jeff Tindall be nominated for Vice Chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I'll close nominations and move on to a vote.
Okay, I'll move that Jeff Tindall be elected as Vice Chairman of the Board of Education, Simsbury Board of Education.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Glowingly unanimously approved. Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. And this is the weird one. I'm opening the floor for nominations for Chair of the Simsbury Board of Education.
I move that Susan Selena be nominated for Chair of the Simsbury Board of Education.
I second it.
Are there any other nominations? Just checking.
No. No, ma'am.
Seeing none, I close nominations, and I would ask for a vote.
Move that that Susan Selena be elected as Chairman of the Simsbury Board of Education.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you all.
Congratulations.
Another
Congratulations,
fun
everybody.
2 years
Congratulations.
with all of you. All right, here we go. Okay, so moving on to Latimer Lane, which I'm very excited to hear about.
Yes. You wanna see that up here? Yeah.
Absolutely. Not much voting in this part of the meeting. But we hope this will be a little bit of a holiday treat for the board because we have not had a formal update about Latimer since last spring when you approved the educational specifications. But lots of work has happened behind the scenes in terms of getting a grant application ready, bringing other partners in the work on board through the hiring processes with the Public Building Committee, and certainly some work in terms of early due diligence and then the design process that has certainly begun. And Jeff, as the principal from Tecton, has also want you to understand that there's now sort of an entire team from Tecton working on this project and regular participants.
I just looked behind his shoulder.
And the regular participants in the various meetings that we hold are myself, Jason Casey, and our principal, Mike Luzetti. And we get to see sort of the incremental progress that's been happening, but tonight we're here to answer anything from the local level that you have. But Jeff, obviously, I think most exciting, it'll bring you up to date on some of the process, but to show you where we are in the design stage, and I think it'll be pretty exciting for the whole board. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff.
Great, thank you.
Jeff, I feel like, we've been missing you.
Yeah,
You're an
well, thank
auxiliary member of the Board of Ed for quite a while.
Thank you, thank you. Jeff Wazinski from Tecton Architects, principal. This advances it. Okay, great. So I have a brief update on the Latimer Lane School and our progress. The first slide, as Neil had mentioned, we've basically filled out the entire team. So we have a whole host of team members that support the design, interior design, mechanical systems, site planning, so on and so forth from the design. But on the right side of that slide is the rest of the team that's responsible for the total project delivery. So Arcadis is what's called the OPM, the Owner's Project Manager. O&G is the construction manager. They're responsible for building and renovating the addition and renovating the building. And then you have SES, which is Sustainable Engineering Solutions, which is the commissioning agent, so they'll look at it. They're involved throughout the design, but also at the throughout the construction of the project to make sure that it's built in accordance with the plans and specifications. So this is our team, and most of them are smiling, mostly because they didn't have to come here tonight. But no, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. But we do have a whole host. Justin Hopkins is our project manager, day-to-day contact that's been intimately involved with the group that Neil had mentioned. Ernest is our designer. Catherine's an interior designer. Antonia focuses on well design, so we spoke a little bit about that, I think, during the master plan, but to really focus on the health and wellness of the occupants of the building. So she's really focused on that to make sure we do it well and design it correctly. Michael is responsible for the landscape architecture, the site planning, and then Derek is our building systems engineer, which you remember him through the master planning. And then we have a whole host of structural engineers, cost estimators, and so on and so forth. So we've been up to quite a bit of work over the last 3 or 4 months now. And just wanted to kind of highlight, so we have site surveys done, we have some wetlands flagging. We were out there with a rig. We did some geotechnical, borings to find out what the subsurface conditions are. So a lot of due diligence related to the site and building. And we've obviously worked on preparing and refining and various different options as far as the site and floor plan development, which I'll go over where we are in the current status of that. Of course, we've had several meetings, and I think we've highlighted a few others on the next slides, but not only with the Simsbury Public Schools, but with ONG and the rest of the team. So smooth sailing so far. OSCGNR, which is the state, the Office of School Construction Grants and Review. So we have some kind of gateway meetings. So one of them is the SDR meeting, which we had November 23rd. Went very well. Actually, tomorrow we'll probably hear the priority list comes out, and that's where the Latimer Lane School will be listed on the priority list, and it'll give a ranking either as far as priority A, B, or C. So we look forward to that. We've obviously coordinated closely with them to make sure that we have all the grant applications in, and we're maximizing reimbursement.
Just so the board is aware, we also made sure that our legislators, Representative Hampton and Senator Witkos, are aware that this project is on the priority list.
Okay.
So they are very much advocating for the.
Yeah. So yeah, no, all is well with most of the state at the OSCGR. There's been a leadership change, but we're very close to the acting director there as well, because he does a lot of the state projects as well, which we do. So, and then item 4 here, building systems coordination. We met with the Clean Energy Task Force, which I believe there's a member in the crowd tonight, with our engineers and some members of the Public Building Commission to talk about strategies for clean energy, sustainability. So we've come up with, and I'll show you 2 examples of where we're headed with the building systems for the mechanical components of the building. And then we're also looking at a building envelope analysis, basically looking at how we can make the building as energy efficient as possible. This is our chance to do it. We need to take it seriously, and early in the design phases when you would do that. So a bit of a technical description here, but this is the system that we're pursuing, which is called the chilled beam system. It's the mechanical system for the classroom. So what's great about this from a mechanical standpoint is it has pipes and water to it. It has no moving parts, so the maintenance long-term is fantastic from a facility standpoint. The other piece is that they have units basically on the roof that will bring fresh air, constant volume fresh air to all the classrooms. So the air exchanges that you have, well, you don't really have many today other than the operable windows. You have a constant change of air exchange. It's all filtered. There's a heat recovery wheel on the system, so it's a very energy efficient system. So we think that was met, I think, with some pretty good reaction as far as across the board for the PVC facilities and as well as the energy task force. So just a little bit of a detail on how it would lay out from a planimetric. On the right side, you're looking at a plan view. So what we're really interested in making sure that we get air exchange, fresh air in, and then exhausting the air out of the room. So the site plan is really coming along. I think that's the piece that's come a long way. and let me just kind of walk you through this a little bit. The darker brown on the screen there is the areas of the new additions, and we'll get into what's in those additions when we get to the floor plan. And the brown or beige is the renovated school. You'll see we kept the parent and bus because after talking with Michael at length, we think that works pretty well. But you'll see a lot of other site improvements, age-appropriate play areas, the layering in of the school safety and infrastructure guidelines from a safety perspective, the idea of integrating outdoor classrooms throughout the perimeter of the building. All of those pieces have now been incorporated into a revised and proposed site plan here. So some of the ideas, just to give you a flavor of what we're looking at, is that you can see the outdoor learning, a variety of different outdoor spaces so that you can teach a wide variety of curriculum as well. The universal access to the play areas is huge, so we have that, but we're integrating that so that it's fair and equal to all students as far as accessibility. That's a piece that you see in these photos here. And then just to highlight the existing parking and bus loop remain, as you mentioned. We are making some improvements to the entrance because it is a little bit confusing, so we're adding a median, some plantings to separate it so you'll have very clear distinction between bus and parent circulation when you enter the site.
And there's enough parking there?
We're
Increasing the parking
we're
spaces?
keeping it pretty much at where it's at today. And we're maintaining the overflow to the basketball courts as well for event parking.
Okay.
And then on the left side of this plan, I don't know, on the left side of this plan, the current directive is we're going to see if we can get a little bit more overflow parking if there's more events. But yeah, we're keeping it basically right at where it's at today. Yeah, and we think that's appropriate for the daily use. Yep.
Okay.
I mentioned the age-appropriate play areas, so there's 4 play areas. K-play, grades 1 to 3. There's 2 of them over on the left side of your plan here. There's 2 different kinds of play areas, and then up in the back here, 4 to 6 as well. So a lot of site development around the perimeter, as I mentioned. The outdoor learning around the perimeter, but also with the 2 additions, we create these outdoor protected courtyards, which we're then developing. And the left side, the courtyard where I'm kind of highlighting there on the left is adjacent to the music room, so we can have outdoor performances if we open up the music room to that space, which I think will be a really interesting piece. And then on the right side, the cafeteria is immediately adjacent to that space, so it would be great for outdoor dining or outdoor eating for the students. So on the fair weather days.
And the media center leads up.
And the media center, absolutely. Yep. And there's outdoor reading nooks in that area as well.
Is landscaping everything that's round? Like, are those bushes, trees?
So those are all trees. Yeah. Everything that's round are plantings, new plantings. We're trying to maintain the existing plantings along the property line as well. So we're definitely embellishing it. There's a few things we need to do from an environmental perspective. We need to make sure we treat the stormwater collection now. So we're trying to use some of the landscaping as kind of educational tools as well for sustainability. So, but yes, everything that you see is particularly the round are all the new trees, and we're trying to designate separation between vehicular and pedestrian traffic as well with those kinds of screenings. So. We're maintaining and improving the sidewalks and then the space for the bicycles as well, which was a piece that was brought up at the PBC. So we've been we meet typically once a month with the PBC, sometimes twice a month, depending on schedules. So we'll be continuing that all the way through to basically late spring, which is bid time.
I just want to reiterate for people that PBC is the Public Building Committee.
Oh, I'm sorry,
yeah. Yeah, I just want to make sure everybody is aware, anybody watching from home as well.
So this plan is more of a technical plan about the site grading, that the committee wanted to see at the last meeting. And then here's the proposed floor plan. And I'll walk you through some of the diagrams that are following the upcoming slides here. But all of the main elements that we talked about early on in the conceptual design, the sharing of the core spaces in the center of the building, really opening up and celebrating, education once you enter the building itself. We're going to really open up that hallway here, so you're going to have a lot of transparency into these shared spaces. It's really going to be quite exciting when you look down this hallway. We'll infuse natural day lighting into that main core as well. The admin stays pretty much where it is. You see the media center is kind of completely reinvented, and we have art, music, and general music all kind of around this central core. And then all the light blue areas are all the different various grade levels. And you'll see the purple, we really thought long and hard and had careful placement and distribution of the specialized education pieces. And you'll see there's a wide variety of the sizes of them as well throughout the building. And then on the far right, so this is your addition here, and the lower portion of this addition is the cafeteria with a completely new kitchen with loading, service, and deliveries back here, kind of the back of house pieces, and then the gymnasium, stage, and storage rooms. So basically, the idea of this layout is that you can compartmentalize the building. For example, if you have nighttime use, you can completely separate this with proper egress out, so that you don't have to worry about either. You can reduce heating, lighting, all those kinds of things, and as well as security. You can have the community use that side of the building relatively easily.
How big is the gym compared to the existing gym?
It's probably just about double.
Ceiling height.
The ceiling height.
You can actually three-pointer.
Yeah. Ceiling height's going to be about 25 feet plus. So we sized it for an elementary size full court gymnasium. So yeah, you'll have proper ceiling heights, proper basketball heights, so it can be used not only for the school but for the community as well. Yep.
The special education rooms, are those therapy rooms? Because they're not big enough as a classroom, but is it offices and therapy rooms and those things, or?
It's a whole combination, and the reason why you're seeing a variety of different sizes and locations is for built-in flexibility. So it's math, reading intervention, it's the I call them the one-on-one group all the way up to 4 to 6 students, and then there are some larger ones kind of up towards the art room here that we're still kind of working on shaping that could be in that 12 to 16 range. So we're trying to try to provide the optimal flexibility without necessarily reserving rooms for particular uses. So it's a little bit of a culture change, but I think long term it gives you a lot of flexibility. Did I describe that?
I'm very excited at this meeting.
Yeah, just a quick question on the
Sure.
on the addition on the right side. Does
Yep.
that get into the existing parking lot at all? Or?
It doesn't. No. It comes right. It comes within about 10-15 feet of it. We tried very hard to kind of, you can see how it jogs up the screen a little bit to utilize the space that's there without having to completely redo all of the parking. So.
Does that cause any issues then on the parking, like what we see in Terrico? With that one side of Terrico that's right up on the wall?
No, there's, if you don't mind, I'll flip back real quick just to show you. No problem. So so you've got about 30 feet here, and believe it or not, there's about a 4-foot grade change from the existing door down to the current parking lot. So you can kind of see it in here. All of these walks are designed in a way that they're 1 in 20, so they're not ramps, but it gives you full and complete accessibility to all aspects of the building. So this basically slopes down a bit, like 4 feet. So this buffer here is another opportunity for like waiting and like it's about 30 feet, so it's a pretty big buffer. So to answer your question in a quicker fashion, it's not going to be right up against, but we think that buffer kind of creates another opportunity for outdoor kind of kids can sit on the hill and can teach it as well. So great, thanks. Yep.
Jeff, I'm going to hit you with one more question on the gym.
Sure.
Because what Brian's getting at is something is he's been involved with youth sports for a very long time in town.
Yep.
And anybody that tries to schedule gym time in this town knows what a challenge it is. So if you don't know the answer to this, that's fine. What's the length of that court in feet, do you know? So like if a basketball court, a standard basketball court is like 91 feet long.
Yeah.
If it's anything
So
like
when
the-
you say, hey, it's a youth size or whatever, I just want, and we don't have to do it now, I just want to take a look that it's going to be space that either older, 7th, 8th grade travel kids can play a game on
Yeah.
or not play a game. That's just going to be an important thing to know one way or the other.
Well, definitely, I don't know it off the top of my
Yeah.
head. I'll definitely
Okay.
get it.
That's what you're getting at, right?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, because I looked at the diagram here and I see the 3-point line runs into the out of bounds, and
Yeah.
I'm thinking like central school type size, or maybe a little bigger, which is
Yeah.
better than anything we have right now.
No, right, but it's important to know.
I can tell you that the gym itself, the box itself, is I think 6,200 square feet, and in 6,200 square feet, you can get a regulation size basketball. But we'll definitely overlay that, and that's a piece. So we're in schematic design right now, which is, all right, do we have the spaces where we want them, and do we have enough of the spaces?
Yeah.
The next phase is to talk about, okay, what lines do we want in the gym? Is it basketball, volleyball, so we're moving into design development, and which will give you all those details, but that's a great question. Yep, great question. Okay, so let me walk you through just some of the highlights of the plan. The admin nurse, again, it's completely reinvented, but it remains where it is. It has good visibility over the parking and entrance.
You can get to the nurse's office from the hallway.
Yeah,
Yes,
you
you
definitely
can.
can. Yes, yes.
You don't have
And
to
there's
walk
proper,
miles.
yes. There's proper exam, resting, toilet facilities to support those functions. Yep, absolutely.
Is it a bigger space now?
It is, yeah.
We're getting so many more kids at Latimer.
Yeah, it extends further down than what exists today. So, and we're kind of shuffling some spaces, some program elements out of there as well to make room. So,
Okay.
yep. Kindergarten, after much debate, we've kicked around the location of kindergarten, whether portions of the building. We landed in the bottom left-hand corner for a variety of different reasons. So again, where grade 1 is right here, we're building in the flexibility, if you remember, if long-term, big picture, if 6 does go to Henry James and pre-K gets geographically distributed, we want to be ready for that to occur in this building. So we're planning it, we're putting in the infrastructure just to make sure that if and when that does happen, it's a relatively easy modification to the building.
Is that pretty much where kindergarten is now?
Yeah.
Yes.
The 2 on the left exist today. Yep. The cafeteria gym, obviously, as I already mentioned, it's located so it is partitionable away from the building. The core spaces, as I mentioned, the media center, media, art, instructional, music. We talked about the relationship here to the outdoor protected play. You have the relationship to the media center, to outdoor, and the cafeteria relationship. So I think it sets up well to actually make sure those are usable spaces. As I mentioned, the special education resource are distributed evenly throughout the building. Talked about the protected outdoor learning. Oops, sorry. And then a lot of thought has been given to the proximity of the outdoor playscapes, and I think obviously COVID has heightened the awareness of, the reacquaintance with outdoor learning and connections to outdoor learning, and the positive impact it has on the students. So we want to make sure to maintain that theme. So you'll see those connections there.
Are there
Before you
exits?
go, can you just talk for a moment about that stairwell that was not handicap accessible and the grade change and how you've addressed that issue?
Sure. You're talking about up to the...
In the main
the
hallway,
main- in the-
outside the gym?
Inside the building.
Outside the existing gym?
Okay, yeah, so we've done a lot of studying. So if this is 0, this is plus 30 inches, so it's up basically stage height. And then this is 19 inches lower than this. Those are all existing. So when we connect this, there's a ramp here that connects So you have a full connection, complete accessibility around this loop of the building. And then on this side, what's kind of interesting, and a little bit hidden, you're up plus 30 again right back here, this is existing. So the stage, we have an opening here. We've located what we call a stage, but it actually is a classroom that will have an operable partition that when you open it, it'll be a stage because this gym is down 30 inches, right? And then we'll have exits out and connections there. Then you'll come down here, which is a ramp, and gets you back down to 0. So each of these loops, so it's full and complete accessibility throughout the entire building.
So you could essentially rollerblade around the whole place without having to...
Brian,
Bring
things
back
that
the
shouldn't be said
Heelys.
out loud.
I was gonna say, bring back Heelys.
Yeah, I like that.
Are there outdoor exits and entrances to the gym?
Yes.
Like directly from outside?
So that was the other piece that the PBC asked us to look at because we know it's this school is used for voting.
It is.
So what I don't know if this plan caught up to it. It didn't yet, but well, I guess it did. Yeah. So we have. I talked about that buffer and the sidewalks that kind of get you to grade. You come in this side.
Okay.
If there's voting set up, you come out this side.
Okay.
So that sets up well community perspective.
But I'm also thinking about like even like basketball, like so they're not going through the whole building. They can kind of
absolutely.
access the gym in the evening or on Saturdays.
Much better.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and they'll have access. Yeah. They'll have access. What's nice about this is if you lock that down, and you lock this down, we're gonna have to put some doors in, but you'll have toilets if you need them, right? For
Yep.
the gym, or if you're using the cafeteria, you do have access to this if you want it, but you also have access to that. So this space can be used as if it's its own.
Standalone almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions on plans? Sure.
Want to mention how the stage goes out to the back as well?
Oh, yes.
I think it's an interesting feature.
So we're, with all these doors and various different, we're trying to build in flexibility. So the other piece that we're looking at is to backdrop this piece to have somewhat like a garage door, if you will, so that if you want to set up a stage or performance with a mini makeshift kind of amphitheater outside, that gives you another opportunity for outdoor kind of presentation or whatever. So we're trying to build in these pieces all around the building to give you options.
No, I don't.
Jeff, can you speak for a minute though on the doors themselves? I'm assuming they're secure, but just can you speak a little bit about just the security of it?
So we haven't gotten to the technical pieces of the hardware itself. I mean, obviously we know you have various different upgrades already, so we're gonna match the same systems. The benefit of having the connections directly to the play is that it's easy accessible. The downside is you have to make sure that they're adequately controlled. So what's not in here yet is a layering of compartmentalization of the building, and that's a piece that so we started doing that with the site, because the school safety infrastructure guidelines talk about, it's really about, I think you've heard, delay, deter. You want to buy as much time as you possibly can. So the next layer of this plan is going to start looking at those kinds of sequences to make sure that we're covered. But all of the requirements as far as the glazing and the hardware as far as bullet resistant and the proper controls will all be addressed in this piece, in this renovation.
And a man-lock vestibule at the front that forces you to the main office and not into the school.
Yeah. So the main entrance is still going to be the main entrance at the end of the day, not this entrance over by the CAF.
Yeah, the main entrance remains, and as Neil had mentioned, which I didn't point out, you're now forced to go into the admin and around.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Other questions on that? Okay, just an aerial view. Promise the next update will have new and improved renderings, because I think you might have seen that one. I'm not quite sure if you have. So the gym, the cafeteria, the kitchen, the loading area. See, this doesn't necessarily represent the refinements we had, but what we want is have a nice, some nice glazing and entrance here. This is the admin. We're talking about maybe looking at some entry piece to better recognize the main entry to the building. I think you've seen these before. Again, the gym on the right side, you can see this is about 25 feet with some clerestory lighting in there for natural day lighting. That's the caf, that's the kitchen, that's the loading.
Where are the bike racks? Sorry, not to be.
Bike racks are like right in this area, right where they're pretty much, oh, I'm sorry, no, they're down here.
Okay.
Right where they are today, for the most part. Because I think that, we talked about that works pretty well.
20 to 25 is enough for the population we have there?
We go back and forth between 15 to 20, and then when the weather's really, really nice, and at the height of COVID last year, we would have 25 to 30, but that's not the typical. It's typically in that 15 to 20 range, but we want to accommodate for a little bit of an increase.
Okay.
That's the view of the cafeteria. So so that's the protected play area there. That's down the admin hallway to the left. The media center is kind of on the right. You can see that yellow that's representing the media center wall on the other side of that courtyard. And then, so next steps. Our next steps are, our estimator's currently working on an estimate to make sure we're on budget. We had a productive meeting today in our office with O&G to talk about the logistics and phasing of the building, right? So that's probably one of the more difficult challenges, is to figure out all the phasing of the building to make sure we think through how systems are connected and safety and sequencing, all those kinds of things. So we have to have those conversations early and often. In fact, I think we're having an element Thursday. And then we need to start submitting for conservation, wetlands, design review board, and planning and zoning. So those are all through the next 3 months. Really excited about the community conversations. So we set one up on the 4th with the faculty staff at 3:15 to 4:15 to give them an update, and then the community, the Latimer Lane community on the 10th. So that should be fun to present kind of where we're at with that. And
in-person meetings.
Yes, that'd be great.
Just want to let the community know it's an opportunity to come out and see the presentation.
Yep.
And that'll be at Latimer.
Yeah.
And then the last piece, we're still working really hard at making sure, and I mentioned this, making sure that we provide as an energy efficient building as possible. And what we're striving for, so we're preparing a few different options as we develop the design called alternates, so that if you get favorable bidding or not, you could select these things. But our main focus is to basically, believe it or not, is to electrify the building, because that's the best way to get to basically net zero and carbon neutral. And then the mechanical systems, as I mentioned, I think I failed to mention the fact that we're looking at a geothermal system with that chilled beam that I explained.
The chilled beam for a second?
Sure.
Certainly, but on the slide you said that you had a lot of pros and you had a con of condensation concerns. How do you mitigate that? I mean, is that going to create mold issues?
No, it doesn't. It's a good point. What it means is you need to have an awareness of the control of the environment, and we were actually just talking about that. So you can't have, I think right now they have full windows that you slide open, and you have a large open area. So the inability to control the environment leads to challenges with that. So you want to make sure that you have, an accurate. So we're talking about operable windows still, but not as large an opening. So once you control kind of that piece of it, then all that stuff goes away. Well, those concerns go away. But it's a good question, yeah. So that is where we are in our update. And so we're...
I actually have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
All the way back to the very beginning.
Sure.
No, you don't have to go back, but I'm just curious, when you introduced your team, with someone who was like a wellness designer, can you give us an example of the decision that she might have made that I've never heard of that, so I'm just trying to figure out what in this design came from a wellness decision?
So she'll often sit and critique the layouts to make sure that there's accessibility to natural daylight. I'm making sure that we're not landlocking rooms. You'll see a lot more of that as we move into the next phases, talking about finishes, colors, textures. They have a significant impact on the occupants. But for right now, she's making sure that we have spaces located in the right locations and that the orientation of those rooms respective of daylighting and configuration. And so it's another layer that I think is a healthy one to look at to make sure you're designing it appropriately.
It's a great consideration.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned geothermal. So is that going to be something that is more costly or more difficult to, or are we, I guess I'm trying to understand if that's really our preferred way to go, and is that within our budget?
It's a great question. So the chilled beam, you can have you can provide regular power to the systems, the head end systems. And this is an architect explaining mechanical systems, but so forgive me. But
I might understand
Mark's
it
better.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, he'll correct me. But we believe that we can, at the minimum, provide the head end equipment on a geothermal system, which means basically, greatly reducing the need for basically the use of carbon. So we think we can fit the head end systems and geothermal together. The stretch is probably going to be the rest of the systems on geothermal, because I think we priced out somewhere in the range of about $750,000 for an entire geothermal bore field. So we're going to take it as far as we possibly can. The conversation, and I believe some community members in the Think Task Force came and spoke, we're going to get the electrical systems basically PV ready or solar array ready, so that I know you're looking at the power purchase agreements. So if that's an avenue to go, or if you just want to outright, purchase photovoltaics, that gets you basically. We want to set it all up so that if you can afford it, you do it. If you can't, and you want to add to it because of this, you can do it and plug it in, and then you're at basically carbon neutral or net zero.
Okay.
So that's how we're designing our system. We didn't anticipate the photovoltaic array either on the roof or on the site during our approvals for the referendum.
Yeah.
That's probably about $1 million, 1.2, 1.5, depends on the size range to add to the budget.
Okay.
So there are some costs that if you want to get completely carbon-free, that you'd have to look at, and we can certainly provide those.
Okay.
Are there grants for that sort of thing?
So, yes, and the state is, the reason why I hesitate a little bit is the state originally, when you got an Eversource grant, would, if you were getting your reimbursement, they would take the grant off the whatever they would give you for reimbursement. They've changed their approach on that now, and the Eversource grants are dramatically have been increased to a point, I think it's around the maximum is about $500,000. So yes, and yes, we are pursuing them. Yes, we're going to try to pursue as many as we can, but we're not counting on them to make our budget. Those are kind of, if we get them, those go back to the town typically. So we will pursue those. Yep.
Great.
Very exciting.
Any other questions for Jeff?
That's great. Appreciate
Thank you
coming
so
out,
much
Jeff.
for-
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Yep.
Jeff, can you give me the clicker?
Sure. I remember working 2 years ago.
Unbelievable.
I
Yeah.
know, right?
A lot of work.
And
Yeah.
now, see this, it's just,
Yeah.
Griffin's awesome.
Thank
And I, although Jeff took the lead on the presentation, I do want to say Mike's level of engagement when you're taking this on while you're running a building during a pandemic, it's been really tremendous, and he's been just highly engaged in every step of the process while already holding down a full-time job. So it's been really want to publicly recognize his work, and we'll get to celebrate it with the faculty and the PTO next month, and we're looking forward to it.
Mike, you got a chance to visit Mr. Baker today, talk about how you
I
managed
did.
that.
I got was getting the middle
Project
school
over
version
there.
of how to survive a construction
Smart.
project.
How to make it part of the curriculum? How to give construction tours by Scott Baker.
Yeah, very good.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. Okay.
All right.
And now, Mr. Sullivan,
Right.
your
So I
favorite
gave you
numbers
your-
discussion.
I gave you your treat first. Now you gotta give me a few minutes on enrollment projection. 'Cause
We
you
know
have-
how you enjoy it, so
you
it's all
have to
good.
eat your vegetables.
We are all well prepared.
You really enjoy it so much.
I got some good
I
stuff.
actually do like it.
I like
So
it
I do
I'm
too.
just saying, I really
I like
do
it.
like it.
So, again, as I spoke of when I showed you the October 1st report, unfortunately, our partner Malone and McBroom, who we've used the last few years, closed up this book of business. So, back to NESDEC, which is located outside of Boston. It's a group that had done our projections for years. So I'm confident in their work, and yet it's hard to be completely confident given what we've been through in the pandemic. Projections are best when they're stable and predictable and things, and we're anything but that right now. So you're going to see some what I think are pretty high projections, and it's based on the experience of the ratios we're creating this year. So I'll talk you through that as we go. So before we go forward, we'll go back and look at the last 5 years. And I took this just to say it's a remarkably steady a place we've been for the last 5 years, as you could find. That we are literally within 10 students from where we were 5 years ago. But what shows down below is that it's just a swap of elementary population going up while the high school population goes down and the middle school stays right where it is, right? So that's what's kind of, and you know from your budget processes that follows. We've reduced FTE at the high school and we've increased it at the elementary school. So playing that out, that's kind of where we've done. This is where the 5-year projections go. You can see in the first year, it's a very modest prediction of just 27 more students to go to 4,056. And yet, you'll see in a moment that in 2023, there actually was kind of a birth boom in Simsbury in 2018. That is projecting sort of more kindergartners 2 years out. And then it takes that projection and moves it forward so that you are looking in the neighborhood of almost 500 more students over 5 years. I think that's pretty aggressive and high, but we won't, it's going to take another 1 or 2 more predictable years before we can kind of get into, really more reliable projections. The good news.
What was our peak?
Our peak was closer to 4,900.
Okay.
Yeah, so anyway, that's what that's showing. To break it down a little bit, the overall level on the upper left, K-12, you can see 27 more students for next year, but as I said, almost 500. When you look at that in terms of percentages, it's like an 11% growth. That's again, pretty aggressive. Bottom left, you can see elementary. The growth is at the elementary. When I analyze what NESDEC sent back to us, they're expecting bigger kindergartens than we've seen in the last few years. So this year, you know that we saw a little over 300 kindergartners, and that was the largest we had seen in a long time. These projections start to count on 300 kindergartners every year. And we'll have to see if that holds true. But the middle school will be relatively stable. It's a decrease. We've talked a lot about that tiny 6th grade class that's going up to the middle school next year, but then it will stabilize. It's only 67 students more in 5 years, but in a building at the size that it is now, it's about a 10% increase. And then the high school will now have a little bit more of a dip, but in 5 years, it is now going to be in a very stable period. So that time where we were able to say, oh, the high school is being reduced, we might be able to capture some retirements and capture some teachers. Those days are sort of ending.
Neil?
Yes.
And I know we have a year's more of information, but so we always go out 5 years, right?
Yeah. They go out 10. I don't show you all 10.
Well,
but
do you know offhand? So NASDAQ says 2025 will be about 4,400. Do you know what last year's projection was for 2025?
It would have been Malone and McBroom's projection, right?
Do you know what that number was?
I can put some numbers together for you,
and again, I know that there's more information that's come in since then, but I'm curious.
Malone and McBroom clearly had an upward. This was more aggressively upward. Yeah. No, that's I've done some of that in the past. I did not prepare it for tonight, but that's an interesting question. Here's the best way to look at 1 year and 5 years for each of the elementary schools, and this is where the, so obviously you can see Central, all of them have a fairly significant 50 more students, if you will, over 5 years. Latimer is the one, obviously, based on your last presentation, we've addressed that. Squadron, I've talked in the past meetings, we are going to have to look at clearing up some space, whether that's through moving preschool rooms out, moving a Ready, Set, Go program to another location. We're going to have to find a way to clear room at Squadron. Probably get away with 1 more year with the number of classrooms that you have, but after that, plans are going to have to be developed to move programs.
Can I ask,
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
473 at Latimer, and then again that 551, does that include the Ridge or not?
That does not include the ridge at Talcott Mountain. But this, which has now been zoned to Central.
To Central, right, right. So by 2026, those kids should be back at Latimer, because we're gonna be in the new building.
They're gonna, one of the advantages of Malone and McBroom's projections that is a little different than NASDAQ's, is Malone and McBroom does a bit more of a geo addressing of the, and NASDAQ does more of a kind of historical perspective.
Okay.
So they don't track the live births the way that Malone and McBroom does.
Okay.
They base it on birth estimates.
Okay.
So you actually probably got a little bit more accurate a projection based on live births from Malone and McBroom.
Yep.
But again, they closed up their book of business, so
Yep, yep.
that's where we are.
Neil, quick question. You mentioned the peak was 4,900-ish. How did we deal with it then? I mean, I think I asked this question like a year ago, and I kind of remember the answer. Like at Squadron, I would assume 769 projection 5 years from now, we must have been bigger at one point.
Over 900.
Is it because we didn't have preschool there at the
No
time?
preschool,
Yeah.
half-day kindergarten,
Yeah,
so
that's right.
you're
Yeah.
only taking
That's
half the
it.
kindergarten, less special ed space than you're currently utilizing.
All the grades were 6 classes
All
when
the
my
grades,
kids
my
went
kids
for
went
it.
But
Yeah.
the big difference in the capacity of the school district was at Latimer and at Tooten Hills, you had significant modular units hanging off of
That's
that
right.
those buildings.
Yep.
So 6 or 7
Yep.
classes at Tooten, and how many, Mike, did you have? 4.
Yep.
Full-size classrooms. So,
Plus then another extra trailer.
yeah, the trailer, yeah.
Oh, yeah, ooh.
And then we redistricted you guys to kindergarten at Latimer to Tooten for a couple of years. Yeah.
So, I mean, you'll see that this is where kind of we definitely have to pay the most attention to Squadron in terms of, like, Latimer, the next 2 years are gonna be tough while it's under construction. but then we're going to have plenty of room to be able to handle the population that comes.
This is why I asked about the bike racks.
Not to, we have no real worries projection-wise about the other two buildings, but they get mad when I don't include them. So you could see Henry James is going to sort of a lowish point next year with 622, but then will sort of quickly build itself back up. And Simsbury High School is in, again, sort of like our historical overall. It's going to be in this remarkably stable period where it's 1302 right now, will go down and kind of come back up to where it is. So again, very stable. I expect the staffing conversations to be pretty much stable staffing at the high school level.
And Henry James too, it looks like.
You really just only go down 2022. I mean, 1302 and 1294 is the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's only 1 year of kind of a dip.
Yeah. Okay, here's my favorite chart. So the bottom line is how many births there were 5 years before the school year that you see listed there.
So the solid blue line.
The solid blue line. So take 2000.
Are currently 5-year-olds.
They're currently 5. That's how many of them were born 5 years ago. Okay? The dashed line is how many of those births turn into kindergartners.
Oh, and there's our COVID death.
And you can, so you might just look at that line and go, oh, interesting, until I put those little arrows in there for you. And now you can visually see the COVID dip of 2021, where that number of births resulted in a very low number of kindergartners, compared to this year, where a lower number of births resulted in a much higher number of kindergartners. And if you can see the distance between those going out, that's where they're taking a larger ratio to push out the projections. So again, we need to see where this goes over the next year.
So you're saying that peak in 23, 24 might not be quite that big?
I am definitely worried. Look at the number of births in 23, 24, and that is real data, as opposed to, once you start to get to the next years, they start to predict how many births there are going to be.
Yeah.
But that 230, which is way more than you've had in previous years, were real recorded live births in Simsbury.
So yeah. So as people stay here.
So.
Yeah.
Where's the 120 coming?
Say that again?
Move-ins.
That many move-ins?
Oh, yeah.
Condos.
Only 100,
Yeah.
whole draft.
Yeah, I mean, lots of move-ins are like, we're gonna,
You gotta get there before kindergarten.
we want to get started for kindergarten in that school district, and so there will be a lot of move-in. And so, yeah, so it's a 1.7 ratio. Every birth is resulting in 1.7 kindergartners. Okay?
I would have, it's funny, I would have expected the lines to be flipped.
Yeah.
First, just going elsewhere doing other
And usually, I mean, a suburban district's going to have a positive, they call this a persistence ratio. We're going to have a positive persistence ratio, and other districts, more urban districts might have a negative persistence ratio. So you'll see, so I'm going to see if NESDEC will hire me after I retire.
Oh, my God. They'd be fools not to.
So just a couple of points that obviously you can see, it's about 100 students per year for the next 5 years. Enrollment, especially incoming K, is going to be we got to really be hawks looking at incoming K and say, did it match these projections?
Yeah.
And if not, NESDEC's going to have to be able to make an adjustment for us. And then obviously the Latimer Lane project, to link to our previous presentation, is going to address enrollment concerns in that area of town. And in the immediate opening could also provide some swing space for some of that programming that maybe needs to. So, I mean, the next 2 years from a space standpoint is the crunch. If we have to make a specific move at Squadron Line, we have a couple of ideas on the table, but haven't really pulled the trigger on any of them yet. So that's sort of where we
Discuss
are.
that in the near future. Okay.
All right?
Thank you, sir.
All right, sorry I was not as exciting as Mr. Wazinski.
I
I thought pretty good, pretty good.
I liked it. You did well. All right, so we are back to public audience number 2. Is there anyone who would like to speak to us? Mr. Scully. If you could just state your name and address.
My name is Mark Scully, 29 Notch Road in West Simsbury, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Clean Energy Task Force and Sustainability Committee. And first, I'd like to just say thank you again for the opportunity to work with the architects and the HVAC folks and town staff and to be at the table and to be able to actually make some suggestions and have some input. We really appreciate that. Second, we're really excited about what we're seeing. And I think as you are too, what we are looking at is the potential for an all-electric building. And I want to emphasize, that's really, I think, for us, the most important thing. If we then decide that we can put solar either on the roof or on the field next door, we have the potential to then have a net zero building, which is really exciting, that we're producing as much energy as we need in a year. But even if we don't do the solar, we have a building that is not burning any fossil fuels on site. And eventually the grid itself is going to be coming from all renewables, so we're just moving electrons around. And the idea of putting solar on, as Jason and others know, and as you've seen in the high school, you can do that at zero money down, right? So that doesn't have to add any money to the actual budget. You can have other people build them, own it, insure it, and you just agree to buy the electricity. And typically, in today's environment, you can do that for less than you would be paying Eversource. So the fact that this might be an all-electric building is really exciting, and that it might be a net zero building is just what we need to do for our kids. And the only other comment I would make is, having been at the table, we're now greedy. And we would ask that we actually can even get to the table earlier next time, because we're in a situation where we don't know whether we can afford this, right? And there may be a difficult situation where if we spent some more, we'd actually have, if you're a net zero building, you have essentially zero energy costs. So if we did pay that extra money up front to go full geothermal, we would more than get that back, but we may be trapped in a budget that we did not have a chance to provide input. So we're thankful we've been at the table. Next time we'd love to be there earlier and maybe even form some kind of a community outreach or a referendum as they have done in other towns. So, but again, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. We appreciate your input. It's really helpful.
Thank you.
All right. With that, our next Board of Education meeting will be Tuesday, January 11th, here in the Board of Ed conference room. I would take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much. And just real quick, thank you to Todd for being vice chair for the last 2 years. I very much appreciated that.